Ever met someone who walks in with a smile, but somehow you feel drained the moment they leave? What if the most dangerous person in the room wasn't loud, but beautifully composed and quietly destructive? And what if I told you some women don't want love, they want control? Some women bring warmth the moment they walk into a room. You feel it, genuine, calm, kind energy. But others, the atmosphere actually improves the second they walk out. And no, this isn't about bitterness. It's not about blame either. It's about clarity, the kind you only earn through experience. Because if you've lived long enough, and I know you have, you've seen the pattern. Not every woman who smiles at you is a friend. Not every hug means safety. And just because she says the right things doesn't mean she means well. Life is too short, and your peace is too valuable to keep handing it over to women who drain you, confuse you, or leave you questioning yourself. Especially the ones who hide behind polished charm, flawless beauty, or perfect manners. You know the kind. They know exactly how to say all the right things, but leave you feeling like something's just off. In today's video, we're pulling back the curtain. We'll uncover 6 unmistakable signs of toxic women, traits that are easy to miss, but costly to ignore. This isn't about judgment, it's about wisdom. It's about knowing who truly deserves a seat at your table, and who's only there to take the bread and poison the wine. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." I'd take it one step further. It also depends on the company you allow into your life. So let's sharpen that inner clarity together. Ready? Let's begin. Sign number 1. She's always the victim. Now this is a sign many men overlook until it's too late. She's always the one who got hurt, always the one who was betrayed. It doesn't matter who the story's about, her boss, her neighbor, her best friend of 20 years, or all 3 of her ex-husbands. Somehow, in every single story, she's the victim. You sit across from her, listening, maybe even feeling protective. At first it feels like honesty, vulnerability. She paints these vivid scenes, how unfair life has been, how people misunderstood her, how she just needs someone to finally treat her right. And you believe her, because you're a good man, because you want to believe in good intentions, because you think maybe all she really needs is someone who will stay. But stay long enough, and the picture starts to change. Because what looked like wounds were really weapons. Take Tom, for example. He was a good man, steady, honest, and kind. After his divorce, he met a woman who seemed refreshingly open. She spoke about how men were always intimidated by strong women like her, how her family always favored her sister growing up, how her bosses never gave her a fair shot. At first, he admired her resilience, how she'd survived so much. But as the weeks turned into months, the stories didn't stop. And they all started to sound the same. Every workplace, unfair. Every friend, jealous. Every relationship, toxic, except her, of course. Tom began to notice a disturbing pattern. He was either her hero, constantly reassuring her that she was right and everyone else was wrong, or her villain, the moment he disagreed or, God forbid, suggested she take just a little responsibility. That's where things turned. Because a woman who clings to victimhood will rewrite reality to fit her version of events. And if you get close enough, sooner or later, you'll be cast as the next person who let her down. She'll say, "You never really understood me," or "You're just like the rest of them." And no matter how hard you try, the cycle continues. It's exhausting, it's confusing, and it will drain your energy, your clarity, and eventually, your peace. Stoic philosophy teaches us a powerful truth. We can't control how others behave. We can only control how we respond. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But the woman who constantly sees herself as a victim, she refuses that power. Instead, she surrenders to every circumstance, while demanding that you carry the weight of her emotions. She will drain your patience, your energy, and if you're not careful, your mental well-being. So what can you do? You recognize it. You stop playing the rescuer. You don't take responsibility for someone else's healing if they refuse to do the work. You offer compassion, but with boundaries. And if the stories never change, you step back, quietly, firmly, with peace in your heart. Because walking away from chaos isn't cruel, it's clarity. And clarity is wisdom. In the previous section, we talked about the kind of woman who always plays the victim, the one who drains you emotionally by constantly needing reassurance that she's never to blame. But sometimes, she doesn't need pity to feel powerful. All she needs is a little chaos. Sign 2. She's addicted to drama, and this is something you'll feel in your gut before you even see it clearly with your eyes. Now, I'm not talking about the occasional emotional moment. We all have those. I'm talking about a woman who turns her entire life into a never-ending performance. A play where she's the director, the lead actress, and the script writer, all at once. If life around her gets too calm, too steady, too peaceful, she'll find a way to set it on fire just to feel alive again. To her, peace is boring. Stability feels suffocating. And if you're not careful, you'll be pulled into a cycle of conflict, confusion, and emotional chaos that keeps repeating itself with no resolution in sight. It usually starts small. Maybe one night you were a little tired and distracted while she was telling a story. Suddenly, that becomes a sign you're losing interest. Or perhaps you didn't reply to a text fast enough, and now you're being accused of pulling away emotionally. What should have been a quiet evening turns into an unexpected argument. You find yourself spending hours trying to explain your intentions, apologizing for something you don't fully understand. By the end, you're drained, and strangely, she seems energized. That's the thing about people who feed on drama. It fuels them. Drama gives them a sense of control. It puts them at the center of attention, where emotions orbit around them, and others are left chasing stability. From a Stoic perspective, this behavior makes perfect sense. Seneca once wrote, "An angry man opens his mouth and shuts his eyes." The same applies here. A woman addicted to drama isn't interested in truth or resolution. She's chasing the feeling, the thrill, the adrenaline that comes from stirring up emotions, whether hers or yours. Logic takes a back seat. Reason disappears. She's not seeking harmony. She's seeking stimulation. The real danger here isn't just the arguments or emotional swings. It's how easy it is to get swept up in it all. You tell yourself you're helping, that you're calming things down. But in reality, you're not calming the storm. You're getting pulled deeper into it. Before you know it, you're playing a role in her chaos, even if you never meant to audition. And over time, it begins to wear on you. It chips away at your peace, your clarity, and your sense of who you are. You start becoming reactive instead of thoughtful, anxious instead of confident. You begin to walk on eggshells, constantly wondering, what will set her off next? And here's the Stoic truth. When a man loses his inner stillness, he loses his greatest strength. So what's the solution? Distance. Not always physical at first, but definitely emotional. Step back. Let the storm crash if it must, but don't dive in to save anything. Observe, but do not engage. Stay calm, stay still. As Epictetus taught, we cannot control others. We can only control how we respond. And sometimes the most powerful response isn't words, it's silence, it's space. It's a refusal to join the emotional battlefield. You're not obligated to play a part in someone else's drama. You're not there to fix their chaos, absorb their moods, or solve the problems they keep creating. Your role, especially as a man rooted in wisdom, is to stay grounded, composed, and above all, free. Which brings us to sign 3. She controls through guilt. Now this one, it's subtle, but powerful. Did you know that guilt is one of the most effective forms of psychological manipulation? Research has shown that guilt activates the same areas in the brain as physical pain. That heavy feeling in your chest, that knot in your stomach, that internal pressure to make things right. It's real. And it's not just in your head. And unfortunately, some women know exactly how to use it, not in obvious ways. They don't scream. They don't demand. They simply withdraw, go quiet, or show just enough disappointment to make you second-guess your decisions. At first, you think she's just sensitive. You cancel plans to finish an important work project, and suddenly she's cold and distant. You mention needing a little space for yourself, and her mood shifts like a cloud covering the sun. You assume she needs reassurance, so you give it. You rearrange your schedule. You cancel plans. You say yes when you really mean maybe. Each time you give up just a little piece of yourself. Why? To avoid that disappointed look in her eyes. You know the one. That silent expression that says, "I thought you were different. I thought I mattered more." She doesn't have to say a word. Her quiet sigh, the long pause, the shift in her tone. It's enough. And before you realize it, you start believing it's your fault. You feel like you're failing her. Like, no matter what you do, it's never quite enough. But here's the tricky part. You don't notice this shift until you've already crossed your own boundaries. You're no longer acting out of intention. You're reacting. Instead of making choices based on your principles or priorities, you're just trying to avoid that heavy feeling, the guilt that creeps in every time you choose yourself over her. This is how she maintains control. Guilt becomes her currency, and the more you pay, the more she demands. Not always through direct confrontation. Often it's more subtle than that. A sigh, a frown, a cold shoulder, the sudden withdrawal of affection. You start explaining your decisions instead of owning them. You feel the need to justify simple things: time alone, a night with friends, a career decision. And if you don't meet her unspoken expectations, you quietly become the villain in her story. Little by little, you stop being who you are, and instead you start playing a role she's written for you. But here's the truth. Stoic philosophy offers a way out. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that's the heart of it. When guilt drives your actions, you've already surrendered a piece of your freedom. Guilt clouds your thinking. It pulls you into a pattern of appeasement, where your compass no longer points toward your values, but toward avoiding conflict. So what's the solution? Not confrontation, not anger, but boundaries, clear, calm, and steady. You give what you choose to give, not to avoid punishment or win approval, but because it aligns with who you are. And when she tries to pull those familiar strings, when she sighs, withdraws, or subtly implies you failed her, you stay centered. You remain calm, unshaken. Because a man who knows himself, who acts from purpose, not guilt, is a man who cannot be controlled. That's real freedom, and no amount of guilt can take it from you, unless you give it away. In the last section,
we explored how guilt can become a quiet but powerful form of control. But what happens when, in your most vulnerable moments, the person beside you doesn't reach for your hand because she doesn't even notice you're hurting?
Sign 4, she lacks empathy. This one often doesn't show itself right away, but when life takes a hard left, and it always does, you'll see it clearly, because if you've lived long enough, you know this much is true. Storms come for us all. A loss, a health scare, a business setback, a season of exhaustion, and it's in those raw, real-life moments that we truly discover who's in our corner. A woman who lacks empathy? She won't be. Or worse, she'll be there physically. But you'll feel emotionally alone. You'll notice it in the little things first. You mention how burnt out you are after a brutal week. She glances up from her phone, mumbles something, then shifts the conversation back to herself. Maybe her outfit, her coworker, her weekend plans, or maybe you open up about something real, something that took courage to share. And instead of leaning in, listening, or even acknowledging the weight of your words, she brushes right past it, like it was just another sentence in small talk. There's a distance in her eyes. You can feel it. It's not that she doesn't understand. It's that she doesn't want to. I once spoke with a man I deeply respect. After his wife passed away, he met someone new. She seemed kind, present, supportive at first, but as his grief deepened and he needed someone to simply sit with him in the quiet, someone who could be still with his pain and not run from it, she couldn't do it. She became uncomfortable, restless. She offered shallow reassurances, then quickly steered the conversation back to herself, her plans, her frustrations, her world. Eventually, he realized something heartbreaking. He felt lonelier with her than he did alone, and that's when Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." But here's the addition I'd offer. Waste no more time hoping someone will become something. They're not. Because empathy isn't something you can beg for. It's not something you can teach. It's not something you can earn. It's either there or it isn't. And when it's missing, you don't just see it, you feel it in your bones. An empathetic woman doesn't need to solve your problems. She doesn't need to fix you. She may not say much at all, but when she's with you in the silence, you'll feel it. You're not alone. You might catch yourself making excuses for her emotional distance. You tell yourself she's just busy, that she didn't know what to say, that maybe you're asking too much. But deep down, you know, Stoic wisdom teaches us to accept reality as it is, not how we wish it could be, not how we hope it might become. And the reality is this: if a woman cannot show up for you emotionally, genuinely, calmly, and with presence, when life tests you, she will not have the strength to walk beside you when the harder trials come. The answer isn't to demand more. It's not to plead, convince, or explain. The answer is clarity. It's choosing differently. It's walking away, not in anger, but in peace, with your dignity intact. Because life is far too short to spend it with someone who hears you with her ears but never truly listens with her heart. Sign 5. She's obsessed with superficial things. This one can be easy to miss at first. In the beginning, it may even seem playful, maybe charming. A love for the finer things, a well-curated Instagram, a closet filled with labels. But if you stay long enough, you'll see the truth. This isn't about taste or style, it's about value. She is obsessed with appearances. Her sense of worth isn't rooted in character, kindness, or growth. It's tied to what she can show off: the size of the house, the brand of the purse, the number of likes on a post. She doesn't measure success by who she is, but by what she has. And if you're not careful, you'll get pulled into that same empty race. At first, it seems harmless. After all, what's wrong with liking nice things? Nothing, until those things become her identity. It's not about comfort. It's not about enjoyment. It's about status, control, validation. And here's where it starts to weigh on you. She doesn't just judge herself by these standards. She judges you too. You begin to feel like you're in a silent competition. One you never signed up for, and one you can never win. No matter what you provide, how hard you work, how steady you are, it's never quite enough. Because someone else always has more. A bigger ring, a faster car, a fancier trip, and she's always reaching for the next rung, never satisfied. Never still. The Stoics warned us about this kind of emptiness over 2,000 years ago. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. But for a woman who's trapped in the illusion of image, who places all her value in what she has rather than who she is, satisfaction is always just out of reach. No matter what she gains, a bigger house, a more expensive bag, more followers, it never fills her up. It gives her a high, maybe, a rush, but it fades, quickly. And what replaces it? The gnawing emptiness of wanting more. It's like trying to fill a jar with a hole at the bottom. You can pour in your energy, your money, your time, but it all leaks right back out. She's stuck in a loop, constantly chasing things that Stoic wisdom calls externals. And if you tether yourself to her journey, you'll be dragged along for the ride, whether you want to or not. Marcus Aurelius called externals indifference. That is, they are neither good nor bad. They hold no power over your true self. They add nothing to your character. They subtract nothing from your virtue, who you are, your integrity, your purpose, your peace. That's what defines you. But here's the catch. A woman fixated on the surface will never recognize the depth in you. She won't value the calm strength of your character. She won't admire the quiet dignity in how you carry yourself. Seneca put it best. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. And by that measure, a woman obsessed with superficial things may be surrounded by luxury, but she's the poorest kind of companion because she'll never be content, and worse, she'll never offer you peace. And peace, my friend, for a Stoic man, for a grounded man, that is everything. It is what we protect above all else. If you find yourself with a woman who values how things look over how things truly are, pause, reflect. Because if you stay, you'll lose more than time. You'll lose yourself, your energy, your dignity, your stillness, all spent chasing a mirage, a shadow, something that never stops moving. But here's the solution, and it's simple. Even if it isn't easy, walk away. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in wisdom. Because a man who values peace knows when it's time to leave shallow behind. In the last section, we talked about the woman who can't walk away from appearances, how she clings to image, not substance. But now, let's go deeper into something that affects not just how she sees the world, but how she handles accountability. Sign 6. She can't admit when she's wrong, and I don't mean occasionally brushing something off or struggling to apologize like we all do from time to time. No, this runs deeper. You could lay out every fact. You could speak with calm logic. You could even show her proof so clear a child would understand it, and still, she'll twist the story just enough to make herself right. And if she can't win with facts, she'll change the entire battlefield. Suddenly, It's not about the issue at hand anymore. Now, it's about how you made her feel. How you are attacking her. How you always do this. The original disagreement? Buried, lost beneath an avalanche of emotional deflection and circular reasoning. At first you may brush it off. Maybe she's just proud. Maybe she had a rough day. But over time, you start to see it clearly. It's not a moment. It's a mindset. She simply cannot own her mistakes, no matter how small. She'll defend a bad decision, a sharp comment, or a clear oversight until the bitter end. Why? Because, in her mind, being wrong equals being weak. And weakness, that's something she cannot allow herself to feel. But this runs deeper than pride. Psychologically, people who chronically avoid accountability often do so because their sense of self is fragile. Admitting fault doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it feels dangerous, like an attack on their identity. So they fight, twist, and deflect, not to win the argument, but to protect their ego at all costs. And here's the tragedy. In trying so, hard to never be wrong, she loses something far more valuable. She loses growth. She loses connection. She loses trust. Because when someone sees every disagreement as a threat, there's no room for truth. There's no space for humility. And without those things, there's no chance for a healthy relationship. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If anyone can refute me, show me I am mistaken or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after." That is the mark of wisdom, not perfection, not always being right, but the courage to welcome correction, not as an insult, but as a chance to improve. If you're with someone who can't do that, if your voice is constantly doubted, your reasoning constantly tested, you'll begin to carry the weight of always being the calm one, the patient one, the grounded one, and that weight, it gets heavy, it's lonely, it's exhausting. Because at that point, the relationship stops being about connection and becomes about control. The great irony is this: in refusing to admit fault, she thinks she's protecting her pride. But in reality, she's losing the one thing Stoic men value most: truth. We uncovered the truth behind someone who refuses to admit they're wrong. What they think is strength is actually a wall, one that shuts out growth, connection, and ultimately, love itself. And this, my friend, is where a Stoic man must choose clarity over comfort. Because at the heart of wisdom is this simple truth: you don't need a partner who's perfect. You need a partner who's willing to be imperfect and brave enough to admit it. Without that humility, there is no partnership. There's only ego, only competition. And life is far too short to spend it keeping score. Seneca once wrote, "Only time can heal what reason cannot." But what happens in a relationship where reason is never allowed to enter the room? Where pride trumps accountability? Where every disagreement becomes a battle instead of a conversation? Time doesn't heal anything. It deepens the wound. It creates distance. And eventually, it turns two people into strangers. So what's the answer? Seek someone who knows that saying "I was wrong" isn't weakness. It's one of the highest forms of strength. And if she can't offer that, if she always needs to win, if she can't own her part even in small things, then it may be time to walk away. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in deep respect for yourself and for the life of wisdom and peace you're building. Sign 7. She disrespects your time. If there's one thing life teaches us as we grow older, it's this: time is the one thing we can never get back. Money, you can earn it again. Health, you can fight to restore it. But time, once it's spent, it's gone. That's why when a woman disrespects your time, it's not just carelessness. It's a sign of deeper disregard. And if you're not paying attention, she'll steal years from you. Not all at once, but slowly, in quiet, unnoticed ways. I remember a man named Richard. He was a contractor I used to work with back in Houston. Mid-50s, successful, sharp. One of those self-made men who had built everything from the ground up, disciplined, respected. The kind of man who didn't waste a minute at work. But his personal life? That was another story. Richard had started seeing a woman named Elise. She was charming, elegant, knew how to make a man feel seen. But then came the signs. She was always late. First 10 minutes, then 30. Plans were often canceled at the last minute because something came up, or she wasn't feeling it today. At first, Richard brushed it off, but over time, he realized something hard to admit. She didn't value his time because she didn't truly value him. Sometimes, she wouldn't just cancel, she'd completely forget. No text, no call, no explanation. And Richard, being the patient, steady man he was, let it slide. At first, he told himself what many of us do. Life gets busy, people get distracted, give it time. But weeks turned into months. He began rearranging his work schedule to accommodate hers. He waited alone at restaurants. He postponed business trips. He canceled fishing weekends with lifelong friends because she said, "I really want to see you." And then she wouldn't show. No apology, no accountability, just silence. I remember sitting across from him one late afternoon. He was staring at his phone, quiet. She'd stood him up again, and with a weary half-smile, he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "Man, I feel like I'm always waiting." That's what happens when someone disrespects your time. They don't just keep you waiting physically, they keep you suspended emotionally, always uncertain, always hoping the next time will be different. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing that this is normal. You'll convince yourself that you're just being understanding, that this is just how relationships go now. But a Stoic man, he knows better. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." That's the truth Richard eventually came to face. Elise wasn't forgetful. She wasn't too busy. She just didn't value his time, because deep down, she didn't value him. And Richard, he had unknowingly allowed it by not valuing his own time first. The solution isn't drama, it's not ultimatums, it's clarity. You respect your time as fiercely as you respect your life, because they are in fact one and the same. A woman who truly values you will value your time. She'll show up when she says she will. She'll treat your hours, your effort, your presence as something sacred. Because they are, Epictetus once asked, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" Richard stopped waiting, and so should you, because in the end, time wasted is life wasted. Spend yours where it's seen, where it's respected, where it matters. Now I'd love to hear from you. What part of today's message hit home? What lesson have you learned through your own journey? Tap subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment below, whether it's a full story, a reflection, or just 2 simple words. I love this. Your engagement fuels this community. It helps us grow stronger, wiser, and more grounded together. Let's continue building a life of purpose, peace, and personal power, one choice at a time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.